Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here.
Ed here.
Oh man,
What a crazy day.
crazy day.
What a crazy day.
Ed, thank you so much for coming today. Mick and I are so grateful. Big fans. I've been blessed enough to have been able to help you out in certain situations over the past few years. So we built that. So it's been genuinely one of the great honours of my professional life, and to get to know you and everything. It's been a trip. And getting to know you and the way that you play and the way that you approach music and guitar playing, I don't know anyone who you come at it from a different angle, and the way that you achieve the sounds that you do, it's quite incredible. And just briefly, there was a story that we just mentioned before. Was at your rehearsal studio, and you had the DD5 on, and you played the sound, and it immediately took me to a part that you played on OK Computer. Yeah. You have this ability to create textures and to create atmosphere within your guitar playing. So I'm fascinated by this subject. So it's something I'd like to explore today, with you. Just the headspace that you're in when you're creating these colors, basically with sound. But I'd really like to know as your musical journey so far and how you got to where you are at the moment.
Well, so I'm born in 68.
Okay.
1968, and like a lot of kids around that age, we grew up with Top of the Pops, Top 40 on the radio, and the charts were so good.
Right.
They were so varied.
Yeah.
My earliest memories are Roxy Music, Bowie on there.
Wow.
But then things like, the Stylistics and ELO. There was one of my guilty pleasures, and it's not a guilty pleasure because there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. Radio 2 on a Saturday afternoon, they have Pick of the Pops, and they take a certain year. And last Saturday they had this, and I heard it 4 years ago, and they had the top 20, and in that top 20, you've got Bob Marley, you've got ELO, you've got Public Image Limited, you've got The Jam, you've got Blondie, and at number one you've got something like Baccarat. And as a 10-year-old, I just loved music, and I sort of, my dad, age 6, gave me Sgt. Pepper's and said, "Listen up, son, this is music." I didn't like Sgt. Pepper's, but I loved that Beatles Red album. So I grew up with a lot of music around, but I never had, I played, I played the violin and all of that as a kid and the recorder, but I never had an impulse to pick up a guitar until I heard it was one song, and you'll know this because it's a classic. So let me just see if I can. So we got it here. All right, maybe it's this chord. You'll know what it's called. It's that. Is that the chord?
Yeah, it's in C sharp.
Yeah.
So it's down one fret.
But
that's the
Is
chord.
it? Okay, that's the chord. All right, you know better. So for classic, you don't know how to play it. But
if it's any consolation, I do exactly the same thing. And every time I do it, he winces. So
oh, really? Okay, he knows. So it was hearing Walking on the Moon.
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and like that was the first time I was just like, oh, what? Because the thing about that track is it sounds like it's recorded on the moon. It feels like you're walking on the moon. It sounds like you're on the moon. And for me, like, music is such a visual thing. Like we were saying earlier, like when I connect with a piece of music, it's almost like there's a location for it. And so that was the thing. It's like, oh, what's that? And then I think, so I was probably about 11 or 12 years old, and I was that Regatta de Blanc by the Police is a big album. I love every track on that. And then I saw there was a documentary on the Police, and it's like, who's that? What's this guy do? And I was like, the band's obviously incredible, and Stuart Copeland, Sting as a bass player and a singer and a songwriter, and Stuart Copeland, incredible. But I was like, all eyes on Andy Summers.
Yeah, okay.
You know what?
Yeah.
And because again, there was an elegance in his playing. It was really, and it was all about the sound. So for me, and it's been interesting exercise coming here, thinking about why did I go a certain way? It's always been about sound. It's never been about the guitar per se, because I can be into like, you know, I can be into a drum machine, or I can be, but it's the sound, and it's the sound that connects me with being in a place or an energy or something. So that's not to discount kind of more traditional sort of, you know, because the Jam were the other side. I had this kind of, at the same time, the Jam, Paul Weller and the Rickenbacker, and that kind of really aggressive thing was a bit interesting enough. I realized all my favorite guitarists, it was always within a song, within a great song.
Yeah.
And that was key.
Yeah.
And so I didn't hear Hendrix until I was 18. I didn't hear Led Zeppelin until I was 27. I heard Stairway. And I love Zeppelin now.
Yeah.
I had a Christmas in 1995. We finished touring the Bends, and I listened to 2, 3, and 4, and I was like, this is extraordinary music, but I never heard it.
Wow.
Because we were so tribal in those days. Like, other kids were into the rock stuff. I was really into kind of like the post-punk, new wave, and then the indie thing with the Smiths and, you know, U2 and stuff like that. So I never grew up, I didn't have any idols I didn't have a Stevie Ray.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who's obviously incredible, but Stevie Ray was the guy who played on Let's Dance for me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's a wicked solo.
Yeah.
You know, but I didn't it's not in my DNA. And
Sure.
it's kind of, it's funny as you get older, because you sort of, I think, you know, you want to I said to a friend about 10 years ago, I was really frustrated as a guitarist. I felt like I'm not moving it. I'm just trying to move on. I said, if you were an athlete, if you're a professional athlete, you'd have a coach you'd check into and push you on. And because I felt like I kind of done all this, and I wanted more bluesy stuff. I never, you know, yeah, totally. And I wanted finger picking. I was sort of like, I'm really digging Mark Bolan as a guitarist, you know, all that thing. And I had no grounding in that. Radiohead doesn't come from that. We come from a very kind of angular, Talking Heads, you know, Pixies, Smiths, that was where we grew. So with all those things, so, you know, you had Andy Summers, there was another great guitarist called John McGeoch, who Magazine, Susie, and then you're right in the 80s with, I mean, for me, the big three, Edge, Will Sargent from the Bunnymen, and Johnny Marr, who's, you know, they were all different, but they all had it was all, you know, sonically they were amazing. I mean, Johnny was also had incredible chords.
Yeah.
You know, he melodically in major sevenths and stuff like that, this kind of really beautiful playing. But what I was interested in as well is the way that he arranged guitars.
Yeah.
You know, when you hear a Smiths track, there's so much, there's acoustic and all the 12s and all the stuff going on. And I think the same with all those guys, like with Edge as well, like, you know, just, so that's kind of my DNA, if you like. It's all about the sound. It wasn't about the guitar hero.
Sure.
It's super interesting. So all of those guys you mentioned, as you say, it's all about texture.
Yeah.
It's about tonality, and it's about the way it kind of affects you emotionally, I guess.
It's all emotion.
Which is, you know, in the context of that pedal show, might sound a bit odd to some guys who, and I would be included in that, who got their first thing by being obsessed with the technique of guitar playing.
Yeah.
And you had to get scales down and do all of that. So how if you're coming into playing the guitar as a teenager,
14, 15,
and you're hearing these soundscapes, if you like, or at least texture, how do you approach that when you've got limited stuff? What do you do first? How did you arrive at that?
The first thing you buy is a delay pedal. You get a Boss delay pedal before you get a distortion pedal. That's like, got to get one of those.
Yeah, right.
You know, you have got no money, so it's a delay pedal. And that was the first thing. Carlsbad amp, Westone guitar.
Wow, Westone guitars.
Yeah, Westone guitar, Westone Spectrum. Colin got a Westone Spectrum DX bass. I got the matching one. And basically, I learnt my thing within Radiohead. I mean, when I joined we were a school band. I joined age 16. I think the first song we played was She Sells Sanctuary. And I had the acoustic, and I did the big G on the jing, jing, jing. And that was it. And that's when it started. And then what happened is we sort of we had a 6-year breeding ground before we were signed. So we got a lot of stuff out of our system. So for me as a guitarist, I was still really, really into, and also I didn't have the gear, so I couldn't do a lot of the textural stuff. So it was more about Smith stuff and, you know, that kind of stuff. And then the Pixies came along, so we got distortion pedals. Johnny got the shredder, the Marshall shredder. I got the Governor.
Awesome.
Tom got the Blues Breakers, like the 3 bears and the big, small dish, medium dish, big dish, you know. And we discovered and it became all about that kind of that Pixies kind of quiet loud, and then that thing when all 3 of us would jump on the distortion pedals in the chorus, boom. Then we get signed because Smells Like Teen Spirit is a big hit, and we've been doing this thing for 2 years, you know. So there's a similar DNA, you know, loud, quiet. But so there was a bit of that going on, but I guess until you can afford to get the gear, you can't do the textural stuff.
Yeah, right.
But I did get, on the first album, I used this thing called a Yamaha FX500, a half rack unit. I mean, I remember we all thought it sounded incredible. And it was great at the time. It was part of the Thames Valley, you know, the shoegazing, you know, ride and slow life. This was kind of what they went to before they went to the graduated to more expensive bits of equipment like the Korg A2. But this was the thing. And it was that's what we used. And then on the second album, suddenly, you know, as a band you develop, so it was kind of fairly, you know, it was great. I was playing a Rickenbacker and had a Squire Strat, and we started in the second album, the Bends, suddenly got a Korg A2, and then you can, each album, you don't want to repeat what you've done before.
Right, yeah.
So you just start experimenting further and further. And the great thing about being in Radiohead is there's an appetite for making really weird noises. There's and how you shoehorn those into a track.
Right.
I mean, if you get the weirder, the better. There's and also at the same time there was a real impulse to not be like, so that great XTC documentary when they're talking about not earning, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Ernie.
no kind of, so the way Johnny played as lead guitarist was incredible, very, very brutal, and that little Fender 85 and his Tele Plus and the shredder pedal, and so we sort of everything we were just trying to be different.
Yeah,
that was as much as important, and thankfully the way things got on, I started, you know, I was able to buy bits of gear, and as you know, as albums go on, you know, I can tell you the bits of gear that inform the sound each record, where you go, okay, that's it's not rocket science. You know? Bits of gear are really important.
I just love that sense of, you know, in a way, like any kid starting out, or anybody who doesn't have endless resources, is limited, is naturally limited, and that forces some creativity. And it seems with you guys that you were always chasing your own thing and using whatever you had to make that thing, rather than going, I wish I sounded a bit more like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and so I'm going to get a vibe reverb and a tube screamer, and we want that guitar sound on the record. And it's the opposite of that.
Well, we didn't know about gear either. I mean, we didn't know, we didn't understand about gear. We didn't, you know, we were like, oh, that sounds good. Or Johnny Marr, Peter Buck from, he's using an AC30. You know, we didn't. I remember when we got our Advance, and we went to Denmark Street, and I bought a Rick 6. Johnny bought his Tele Plus. Tom bought a Tele. I wasn't allowed a new amp in the money because I already had an amp, and we didn't have enough to cover it. So they both, Johnny got his 85, Tom got an AC30. I had this old PV, which was actually great transistor amp. But they were all dogs. Their guitars were awful. Like my Rick was set up so badly, and this guy was like, but we just didn't know. Right. There weren't the resources then. It's like, you know, and we didn't hang out with, you know, there were kids at our school who I guess the more rock heads who were inspired by Jimmy Page and stuff like that. They were into all that stuff, but we never had those conversations. We were more about, I don't know, more about I guess the sound of the band and what we were into, you know, and trying to be cool. I mean, that was that was more important than practicing.
Yeah, right. And thus it's...
And we failed in that as well.
But thus it has ever been for rock and roll. But what I love about that is you're trying to be your version of cool.
Yeah.
You're not trying to be Jimmy Page.
No, totally not.
Yeah,
I can guarantee those, I was that kid at your high school who was into Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
And my mates that were doing that now sell insurance and are, doing whatever they're doing. They're not touring the globe playing stadiums, and that's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a funny. I think originality is real. I think it comes down to one of the things I've just finished making a record myself, and one of the things I think it comes down to. I think we're all very lucky to be in this music thing, and I think music is the biggest bullshit detector. It really is. The thing that I keep on asking myself, and I'm not asking myself in a forthright way, but what is the truth here? And which means, what are you feeling? Now, I'm sure you can, Mick, you can play, and I've seen you play, and amazing player. And there might be days when you're just like on autopilot.
Yeah.
You may be at a gig.
Yeah.
And or something, or we all have that thing, and it's to snap out of that. It's like, fucking don't play.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
Don't just put it down.
Yeah.
I think,
That's amazing.
and I think that's the thing about Radiohead is there's been a sort of a no bullshit approach. It's like, in a song, sometimes Radiohead, with three guitarists is a really interesting thing.
Yes, that is.
Well, we can
talk about that.
Well, let's talk about that in a bit. But the thing is that what's brilliant about Radiohead, it is all about servicing the song, and it could be quite brutal because you might not play on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and as a musician, that can be like.
Right.
And you're like, you might be the only one not playing on it. That's happened a few times. And that makes you feel really shit. But, and really insecure, but there's a truth there. And I like that. And the truth isn't always easy.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And I think that is the thing about music is like, for me making this record every day, I kind of went through a gestation period of starting it. And the moment I sort of it was like an awakening, and about 3/4 of the way through, is that we were in a bit of a rut, and it's just like, no, what's the truth here? What am I feeling? How do I feel about this? Really? Because you stop the brain engaging. How do I feel? And I think that's the fundamental part of how I am as a musician, and like with sounds and stuff like that. Am I feeling it? This pedal here, the Memory Man. Mm-hmm. When I first connected with you, it was, and you were the first person I'd met and I said, because I call it the God pedal, like you put anything through it, like that thing, and there's just something, transcendental almost about it, right?
Did you see this?
What?
I lent my Memory Man to Neil Finn.
Ah!
And I said, would you mind graffitiing it before it leaves? And so him and the whole family.
Sharon and
Elroy.
Liam. That's beautiful.
But
Neil a honk.
Give Neil a honk. He's a very good friend as well.
Yeah.
Actually, you were talking about Johnny Marr. Can you give Johnny a honk? Who else are we talking about?
Johnny?
Yeah.
Tom?
Tom, yeah. We talked about someone else. We talked about... anyway, for all the people who didn't honk, Ed's just honked them.
Thank you. So it is all... It plays itself out in pedals and it's I feel the thing about music is it's an amazing thing to be in, but it really does demand honesty, and then sometimes that honesty is like, I don't want to play.
Yeah.
I think we all have that, and there's this kind of thing about forcing your way through practice, and sometimes it's good to, we all know you get over a hump, you have to get in there, 10, 15 minutes. But if after half an hour you're kind of going, and you feel like you should be writing or something, I've got rid of the should. It's just like, if it's not happening, you're not meant to be doing it then, And so, that's a big thing.
I love that. Can we?
Yeah.
Can we hear a bit of the Memory Man?
Yeah.
And then after we've done that, maybe you can tell us a bit about that new record.
Yeah.
So the Memory Man, I would use a lot with. The whammy, for instance. Mm-hmm. So it kind of creates an atmosphere. It creates a place. It creates, I'd have it at the end of a song arpeggi, which is I'm trying to remember stuff. It's been a while. So it might be, then halfway through that bit, you go up the. So that's an example when I use it on the end of an arpeggio. Suddenly you go from it just gives you that, it takes a track, it takes that track which was very kind of in your face and dry, and then suddenly, for me, that's a big cave, or that's down at the bottom of the ocean. It's like, whoa.
I remember when we were putting together your live rig.
Yeah.
And how many different delay pedals did we try?
Yeah.
That were Memory Man clones.
Yeah,
right.
To try and get that sound.
Yeah.
And we came close, and the closest we came was this other Memory Man.
Yeah.
But still, they just don't sound the same as
No,
those
they
old
don't.
24 volt.
They're amazing. And there are so many great delay pedals out there, aren't there? I mean, you do
Oh,
them.
boy, oh, boy.
There are so many great ones, but that one just has, I mean, partly what I need is I use a lot of feedback. So I have that, the other Memory Man, the 1100 TT, and I have an expression pedal, and I'm always like on the edge of that bit, playing the delays and feeding stuff in. I'll just give you an example of. There's a track called Full Stop. So what I do is, this is with the looper as well. So I'm bringing the loop here, but I'll show you what I mean by. That's in that. Is that? No. Yeah. So this is all going on. What I do, I've got this thing. When we play live, a lot of the time I'll get loops and stuff.
Yeah.
But you won't hear it through the amp. I have a switch, and we've got in-ears, so the monitor guy feeds back. So I'm able to prepare stuff for an entrance coming in.
I was going to ask you about that, because I see you on the floor. You have like this telephone thing, and you're setting up loops.
So I'm setting up loops.
Man.
So in that case, I'm setting up. So I use the pedal board a lot for other stuff. So I use it on Tom's Rhodes will go in there. So I'll form with I have two DL4s, the line 6s, and I'll find loops. Now it's very easy to create loops that are just loops, but the trick is to try and find something musical. So he'll play a phrase at the beginning of the song, and I'll when I've got it, I'll give him a thumbs up, and I'll have it in my head. I'll have it in my earpiece, and I'll be like, okay, I'll have a loop, and then I might take another loop with the other one from that and find a segment that feeds out in the end of the song, and it's all going through the pedals.
Is this all improvised on the spot?
Oh yeah, totally.
In a stadium.
It has to be no, but here's the thing. This is the thing. I think it's really important. There's no kind of we don't have any backing. Well, one song has a backing track because
No way.
No, because you've got to fly by the seat of your pants. There's no point doing it otherwise you're like a jukebox. I went to see a band recently at the O2, and most of it was on backing tape, and it was awful, and it just feels like they're just doing a dance routine.
Yeah.
I guess you need that, however many decades of being as one as a unit to know how that's going to go as well.
Yeah, you've got to rehearse well.
Yeah.
I mean, but you've also got to be able to laugh at the car crash. And if you do it in front of 40,000 people, we're human beings,
they're with you though, right? They're
with you, and they're happy, because that's the other side. I think it's so important in the music to see the fallibility and the humanity of people, and the bad notes that we play. I mean, we'll both have nights, and Johnny and I will both have nights when we might have a couple of really bad flangers, and we all do it, right? Maybe you guys don't, right?
I don't do it in front of 40,000 people,
right. But we do it, and you've got to laugh at it, because again, it's like we take the piss. You go and go, God, how did you get away with that, you bastard? So, it's
somebody got a phone on something.
Yeah, I really think you've got to be. I couldn't do it any other way. That's being a musician, right? Yeah. You've got to.
Well, that's being an artist. That's living that, feeling that, and actually portraying something.
Well, you get bored otherwise.
Absolutely.
I think you get bored. Yeah. I think I really, it would just be, and we're very lucky because we've now got, when we go on tour, there are about 60 odd songs. We change the set list every night. And there's also this thing is like, if something feels like it's, if we're a little bit unsure, it's going in the set list.
Unreal.
So there's all of that, like, no, it'll be like, we're a bit unsure about it. Yeah, it's going in. Test it,
No way.
Yeah, so but the thing is, it's not rocket science. Again, it's just doing it and having the not being scared.
Yeah.
Not having the fear.
That's really interesting. I think I've seen you live 3 times, and each time is a very, very different experience.
Yeah.
Whereas some bands I've seen, gone on tour and it's like a carbon copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going to a Radiohead gig, it is a whole, it's such a different experience.
Well, but like Hendrix wouldn't have done the same set.
Yes,
I mean,
of course,
Stevie Ray wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
They just, they accept it. And like some people, like Jack White, doesn't have a set list.
Yeah.
He just does it. That is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we could do that. We need a little bit of preparation, but that it's just doing it.
I think you were about to show us
Oh,
something
yeah,
with the DL4 and
so this is with the delay and the DL. So what I do at the beginning of the song, work that up a little bit more, get a bit more. So I've got that in. Can you just hold that a sec?
Yes.
I do a lot of the time when I put the guitar down, or so then that's going into the memory man. So I might do, this is the start of the song. So I got the, okay, got that. Let's see, yeah. It's like getting sounds like this, and I mean, it's great being in Radiohead because you got license to do this shit, right?
Well, it's your
That
job.
is
Yeah.
unreal.
Well,
It is unreal.
but it's again, it's not. I'm not playing it like you guys are. I'm like getting a sound, and then it's all about the sound, and that to me, that's like a spooky nightmare kind of like dystopian sound, and with the delays, it takes it out into, it's celestial. It goes out there, but the delay has to be right. If that
Yes, of
delay's
course.
not right,
Yeah.
You can't feel it, you can't do it, and even that delay's not right on that. It should have been that one, but it's, do you know what I mean? It's very particular.
What I think anybody watching this would probably find hard to get their head around at this point is, you go and even if you do a full production rehearsal in a big place, and you get that going, once you get into the Enormo Dome, surely everything changes at that point, because everything you're doing is going out at 2 million watts down the other end of the stadia. How do you deal with that? I mean,
it's the difference between the rehearsal room and the gig is the gig's more fun.
Oh man, that's so cool.
You've got the audience, and you've got your thing together. You do have to make the transition to the big show, because you have to, like I was saying earlier, things like, delays and reverbs. Reverbs especially. I don't have a reverb pedal and I don't really use my reverb in my audio kitchen amp. Steve Crow's amazing. That's what I use live. The big chopper. And I don't use that because there's no point having lots of reverb. It just gets lost.
Yeah.
So you've got to be focused on your sound. But I mean, it's just, I think actually the hardest gigs are always like 150 people in Oxford in front of your family and friends. Yeah, those are the hardest. Jesus, yeah, because everybody in there. They're like, God, and you feel really self-conscious. Whereas when you're on stage with your brothers, doing your thing and you're in the zone and you're in an amazing place. It doesn't get any better, really. So and we've got an amazing crew. You know, a lot of our crew have been with us forever.
Yeah.
And so everybody works really hard, and there's a really good, you know, it's that thing, there's a really good work ethic. Everybody works hard, and it's all about the show. You know, like when we're recording or when you do music, it's all about the song. About on tour, it's all about the show and how best to do that, you know, and how, you know.
Depending on the set list, it's like when I saw you guys in Paris.
Yeah.
In the blink of an eye, an organ, you know, you'd have 6 guys dragging this organ on stage, and then the next song, everything changes around again. This army of techs and crew come on.
Yeah.
And I remember, and then backstage after the gig, and the crew at the end of the Radiohead gig, they are
done.
They're just, you know, they're just spent, you know. So
they're like Formula One pit stops.
They are. It's exactly like that.
Exactly like that.
And
they're all, and they've got what, you know, the Rhodes comes in, the keyboards and the piano, and they're all on long looms, you know, and there are bits when it goes like that. And occasionally we have to go like, you know what, Tom's piano comes out, maybe rather than bring it out, wheeling it back for the next song, we should do 2 songs like that in a row. So that stuff. But it's, it's you know, our crew are incredible, and they're, again, it's part of the family. All these things, that's the other thing that all these things, and even when we were small, you know, we were starting off and stuff like that, and people started, it's all about soul and treating people well, and, you know, and I think that stuff, again, like I was saying about music being the biggest bullshit detector, that stuff feeds into what you do. You know, it's like the full picture.
Incredible.
How inspiring. I mean, okay, so when did you get your first record deal? Did you say it was 91?
End of 91. Smells Like Teen Spirit was the big song of that summer. EMI, major record label. Great label. We had a great time with them. But like all major record labels at that time, there's this loud, quiet thing. Do you know what I mean?
What we need is a
Who
single.
else? We need some of this. And there's this pathetic little band in Oxford who've been doing this for 2 years. So it wasn't us like jumping on the train of...
Sure,
we
were there.
We were influenced by the same people as Nirvana, the Pixies. They were the kings and queens of that.
Yeah, you were contemporaries. You were,
yeah. And so, and it was like, oh, okay, so that's how we got signed. And, you know, and that's got the advance and bought some gear. And all the time as well, this is the other thing, we've always kind of reinvested in, like, buying bits of gear. And we didn't buy, that other thing is like, we didn't know about vintage guitars until probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, right.
They were all off the shelf, you know, no custom shop stuff. It was all kind of like, that'll do.
That'll do.
You know.
Speaking of guitars, so this is hang on.
You got one as well.
Indeed. So this is your Strat.
Yeah.
And am I correct in saying this is the first bit of Radiohead signature gear?
Yeah.
Now, this was a very big thing for me getting this guitar.
I remember it, Dan.
As the story is, I had a Strat back in the 90s. I had a 1964 L Series Strat, which was stolen. And I hadn't been able to play a Strat since because that was a very special guitar. Because every time I play one, I'd felt like I was almost cheating on that guitar. It was very weird. Anyway, met you, did all the stuff, and then you gave this to me as a thank you, which I'm eternally grateful for. And the amazing thing about this guitar is it is a Strat. At its heart, it is a Strat. But with the sustainer in it, it goes beyond what the Strat does. And it's an amazing thing. So how did this come about?
This came about, well, we were making our 4th album, Kid A. And Kid A, we were kind of trying to chuck the guitars and distorted guitars really out the window. Because of
the success of OK Computer?
Well, just because I think that constant thing to keep moving and not repeat yourself. Right. You know, once you start feeling too comfortable. And here's the other thing. I think we were getting bored. We're getting bored of doing that. We'd kind of reached a point. So the bends, we started introducing textures, and then OK Computer had the songs and the directness, but it also had a sonic soundscape. And and that was all, we all did that within the context of the instruments that we were playing. So the Rhodes came in, Johnny had one of those 60s, the Beatles used them, keyboards. Mellotron,
yeah.
that's right. We had all our gear nicked, and I replaced my Squire Strat with one of those Clapton Strats with the lace sensor pickups, which is great guitar. I loved it. And I got a proper Rickenbacker, and I had a DD5, and I had a whammy pedal, and I had my Korg A2 rack, and I had a Phase 45 and the Governor into an AC30 and my and the Mesa Boogie tremor verb. And suddenly I spent a lot of time with the A2 getting sounds. I knew the DD5, like I tried to show you the ring mod thing. It's much easier on a digital.
Yeah.
And I really got to know my pedals. So that album's basically recorded live. I mean, it wasn't like we were using studio trickery. Come Kid A, it was all about chucking it all out. And Tom was listening to a lot of electronic music, like Boards of Canada and Aphex Twin. And he sort of he pulled us through, and sort of, it was suddenly about, well, this thing doesn't, I don't know, I'm not, how can I do something new? Keyboards were being bought, Moogs were being bought and stuff like that. And I was just like, well, I love sounds, but I love this thing as well, we all know there's something about it, right? So I thought, well, how can I combine the two now? Back in The Edge had used that infinite sustain guitar on With or Without You.
Yeah.
And that was built by a guy called Michael Brook, Canadian guy. Great guitarist as well. He made a fantastic album with Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and stuff on the Real World label. Brilliant musician. And I was just like, oh, I've got to contact this guy. Let's build one. Because, you couldn't buy I don't think Fernandez had a sustainer then. And then so I called Michael Brook up and had a great conversation, and a lovely guy. And at the end I said, okay, so can you tell me how to build it? He said, no. It was trade secrets, and I get that. So anyway, I managed, then Fernandez, the sustainer thing came, and we basically took my lovely, lovely Clapton Strat and just put it in there, ripped out all the heart of it, and Pete Plank, who does all Radiohead's backline, put it in there. And suddenly you had a sustainer. And it meant that it was the first time I got a looping pedal, then got Akai Head Rush and the Line 6. And suddenly we're in textural territory. And that's when this kind of looping textural stuff came into being. And it came from, again, had enough of that, trying to do something new. And kind of scratching my head and what the hell am I going to do? How am I going to... And just doing it and finding it. And so I'd been using that for a number of years, and about 6 years ago I had one of those things. I had a dream, and I had a dream and I was like, I woke up and I was like, I've got to write to Neil from Fender. This guitar's got to be made. I didn't even think about it. I literally got out of bed and fired off the email, and probably if I'd left 2 hours later I'd gone, shut up. You don't do stuff like that. And Neil was really receptive, and he sent it off to Justin at Fender. And then I had the joy, we developed over 3 years, and I worked closely with Alex Perez, you probably know him?
I've met him, I don't know him, but yeah.
A mensch, just a beautiful guy. And my whole thing was, I was just like, right, because my Frankenstrat, as we called it, was great sustaining, but it was not a good Strat. And so one of the songs that the end bit that I played, Arpeggi, I would start off on a normal guitar, and then I'd have to do a pit stop, change guitar halfway through. And I'm like, that's a bit naff. That's a bit like, you want to be, I wanted to have one guitar, because that's the other thing, you use different guitars for different sounds. And I was getting to the point where it was a different guitar, maybe a guitar with a different tuning, and then something with a capo on it. I was kind of getting more into playing, and I was just realizing that I just wanted one guitar to do it all, you know? I mean, nothing's going to replace the Rickenbacker, and there are certain things, but I wanted something that, as well, my hands didn't have to keep adjusting. Because, you know, it's like you keep changing guitar. I wanted more like, I wanted one guitar and like just to feel it. So that was the idea. And that's where working with Alex and Neil and Justin and trying to find the right pickups was a big deal, because this has got to be a humbucker. So Alex found this, the Seymour Duncan, and then I think this is a Texas special. Is that right? Yeah. It was just like, great, okay. And he built it, and oh yeah, the big thing was about it. I said to him, I went to see Neil, and I said, listen, I'm not one of those signature dudes. You know, I'm not worthy of that. Like my mate Johnny Marr, he's got his Jag. He does it. Clapton, Beck, you know, they all do. I'm not one of those dudes, you know. And Neil said, yeah, great, fine, fair enough. I said, and what I'd like to be able to do is, like, I'm excited about getting this into the hands of 17, 18-year-olds. You know, like their first proper guitar. And he said, well, let's make it made in Ensenada. Let's get a price point so it goes out for under $1,000. So it's like that first guitar. Like I had a Squire Strat that I was just like, I want one of those after the Western. I was like, oh, you know. And so yeah, and I went to the factory in Ensenada, met everybody, made the connection. They're excited, and I think they've done. I mean, you know, I think they've done an amazing job. Literally, this was the last freebie I had, and all my guitars are in the lockup. So I had this at home, and I was just like picked it up, and it was 2 days ago. I was like, yeah, it feels great.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were amazing. The whole Fender thing was, and it was really good because it was I didn't want to do the whole signature thing, and they got it, you know, and they were.
If you haven't seen, there is an absolutely amazing video that was shot with you for the launch of that guitar.
Oh right, yeah.
And it is a beautiful piece of art in itself. So check that out on the Fender website or wherever else you might find it. It's a beautiful video.
They were really good about that, because I was like going, I don't want to do any of that.
Really?
Yeah, and they totally bought into kind of where the world that I come from, and so they were really brilliant about that.
I was just counting the budget as I was watching the one shot that goes all the way through the house. I was like, okay, 10, 20, 50,000. It was like, oh, that is seriously ambitious.
Well, they got a proper promo. It's the guys called The Egg, and
it's beautiful.
It's a really lovely job, and we wanted to do it. It was half shot in LA and half in Willesden. In Assault and Battery Studios, and one of the yin and yang of experience.
I think I sent you the video of my daughter who picked up the guitar for the first time. So one of the things about this guitar with the sustainer is that you can get a note sustaining and then just move it around. So without really having any idea of what she was doing, I put the guitar in her hands. I said, just have a play. And then within minutes, she was just coming up with this stuff, and she was lighting up. And I recorded it. I had to send it to Ed to show her. But it is an amazing, creative, expressive instrument.
And because you don't, it's what I wanted. It is so intuitive, isn't it? And
absolutely.
you come and so the apart from Guitar Heroes for me, Brien Eno is a huge, and he's the master of understatement and sound, and that kind of I think it plays into that you don't have to have all the chops. You don't have to have all the scales. You don't have to have done all of that. You can. It's an interesting thing because the whole punk thing was like that leveling playing field, and there were many good things about punk, but there were also bad things about punk. The good things were it was open to everybody, people not being held up on a pedestal. It was the gates. The bad thing that I didn't listen to, and notes that I heeded for a long time, was that don't practice kind of thing. That's rubbish,
right?
Because you got to put the time in to get better. And I think you can practice. What I spent a lot of time is getting sounds.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm pleased you qualified that.
Yeah.
Because there is different types of practice. It's not just about that, is it? It's about being effective as a musician.
Yeah, but I like what Quincy Jones says. Quincy Jones is kind of like, you should learn it all and then find your thing. And I think, I've had this conversation with Johnny Mark. You give it another honk.
Let's give Johnny another one.
But it's with Johnny, and it's like I often I said like in another lifetime we'll be able to, because this is the thing about this thing, isn't it? I mean, it's like the beauty of this instrument is you've never mastered it.
No, of course.
And so there's so many things that I wish I was. I wish I could play lines like you could, or play that kind of Stevie Ray thing, or do the stuff that you do. I could, if I did the practice in the early days, I could, but I didn't do that. And at a later age, I don't have as much time. I probably,
I wish I could spend half my gig on my knees in front of 40,000 people messing around with a memory man.
Well,
that's what I wish.
The grass is greener, right?
I think it's pretty green where you're saying, mate.
No, it is very good.
The interesting thing though is when I hear you, like you set that loop up, and instantly I'm feeling something, like the intro that you did, and I'm like, right, oh my god, this is moving me. So here's a question. How? When I listened to the guitar parts that you played on songs, and like I said, I had that thing when I heard that thing with DD5. I'm like, oh my god, that's How do you get to? Is it just a time spent thing, like the thing that you do with the loopers and the sustainer and creating these sounds? Is it just experimentation, and are you just keep going at it and at it and at it, or are you hearing this stuff? Are you hearing these textures and feeling this stuff and sort of going in a certain direction when you're placing this over a song, or?
How is it? It's interesting because there is a cerebral part to it that you can, for instance, there is a part that you can go. I think frequency is a big thing.
Okay.
So, again, playing with two other guitarists or musicians, and usually. They've come to stuff, they've written it or whatever. So I'm kind of later in at the stage. There might be frequencies. Mm-hmm. So on Paranoid Android, right? Paranoid Android. So the chorus, Tom's written this beautiful guitar line, and the chorus, it won't be exactly the same because I haven't got the DD5, but it'll be. There's the part that I play is this so it's kind of twinkly.
Oh man!
So that's the accompaniment to. That's the bit. It's the kind of. It's like he's playing the bit below it. The whole on the acoustic, and what I'm doing and what Johnny does with it, and we did that a lot. And I think OK Computer, in terms of guitar work, in terms of working together, is probably our finest record of that. Like the way they interplayed, but we are like adding. So we'll add a texture. So suddenly, like that chorus, that part will make it go. It kind of there's a sort of, I don't know, celestial.
Yeah.
Kind of,
do you know what I mean? Opens up that.
Opens it up.
Yeah.
So frequencies, I think, are a massive thing, and thinking about your foreground and your background.
So you said, okay, there's space there at that point.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is there's something up top.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and they're doing all this. I need
right.
to be
And I'm
somewhere.
feeling magic. I'm feeling like these songs. I'm in a really, and I'm excited by it. And it's almost. I have this thing about like songwriting and songs. I think I have this thing. It's almost like the songs are already there. And your job as a musician is to kind of dial into that frequency. And when it's right, boom, it comes through.
Yeah. Right.
But that means that you have these moments of inspiration, but it also means you have to do your homework. So, for instance, when I was in the studio, I would get there an hour early, and I'd spend time with and I go like, oh, I like that, and I have pages of a notebook with my thoughts and the sounds, and then I might also in those days, because I had fewer pedals, I might move them around the order, and I go, that's good, and I get on that, and then we come in, and there's so much serendipity that happens, and you come in, you start working on the song, and you got that sound, you know, and then and everybody's like, "Way, we're there." But it is like there's magic to. This is what I love about music. There is a magic there, and if you're again, I think that's part of the truthful thing. If you're honest and truthful and allow that to happen, you kind of can tap into that thing in a way, and it's almost like getting out the way. It is like, and listen, it's not always like that. You know, there have been albums when it's a flipping struggle, and everything is like it's like pushing everything uphill. So, but it's when you're in those moments, the purple patch, it comes from somewhere else, and you know, these are why these pedals are amazing, because they're like characters in themselves. You know that, and it's like I need a bit of that, and so.
Okay, one other thing we need to do is we need to talk about the Rickenbacker, the 12-string thing. Because I remember seeing you play this live, and it's such an incredible thing. We just have to touch on that.
Okay. Being Radiohead, there's no room for playing a Rickenbacker. No, you can't play it like that. It's been done, right? So I played, the first time I got a 12 was for OK Computer, and it was a track called Airbag, and it's not a big part, it's just a, you know, it would be just
This is the first time there's ever been a 12-string on that pedal show, by the way.
Yeah, Rickenbackers are really important for me in terms of. So it's basically, you know, it would be. That's the first time, but that's the only time. You know, I use Rickenbacker 6s a lot, so I haven't used 12s a lot, but I've used them. I would use it in a different way now, so I wouldn't use it in a kind of a 12-stringy way. I'd use it. Oh, I know, yeah. Well, there's a Radiohead song on Kid A, and it was, and there was it was using this. It was sort of. Yeah, you know, you love that. Again, kind of not using a 12-string as it should be used.
Yeah, but so. You've got that, the original note comes in, then the echo comes in almost louder, and then it just pushes on. It's amazing. You know, so the first thing that we do, we pick up a 12-string and play tambourine, man. You know, but to hear it being used, like you're saying, like Cynthia lines and that line in Airbag, it's like, oh my god! And there's no other way. It's not like you can get the 12-string setting on the memory on the whammy.
No.
And even though it's a great sound.
Yeah.
It says a different thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's just what you've got and what you feel, and does that feel good? Like we're saying, does that feel good? That feels good. Great. You know,
and it's instantly you guys as well, isn't it? That's the.
Is that
something as ostensibly simple as that?
Yeah.
Of course, it isn't simple, but something.
Well, it is simple.
Right.
I mean, I think that's the other thing. It's not. It's simple. I mean. Making music isn't simple, but I think the other thing that I've realized is that, you know, a lot of the stuff that we the best stuff is there's a simplicity and a beauty to it. You know, I always think, you know, when I see Andy Summers play his jazz stuff and he's all over it, and the stuff he played at the Police, which I'm sure he thinks is simpler, what do I feel? I feel the Police stuff.
Yeah.
There's a great story when we met Robert Plant. We did a gig back in '98, and did this Amnesty International gig, and we headlined it, and Page and Plant were playing it, and Springsteen and the Dalai Lama. It was the Universal Declaration, and we headlined it. And many years later, we got to hang out. We got to meet Robert. It's such a lovely guy, and he said, it was like, he said, "Yes, when I saw you guys, I realized I saw the light. The age of virtuosity was over." And there's truth there. He was also, I think he was being cheeky, but he also understood that you didn't need to be a virtuoso anymore. And that's, I mean, people like Eno's not. I think music's changed. However, you have to put the work in. You have to do the time. Do you know what I mean? It's a different thing.
Virtuosity.
Exactly.
It's a different discipline.
Exactly. And I think because like all those 60s guys, the guitarists had done it so well, that was their new horizon, so that when we came along, that wasn't new. That wasn't what it was. It didn't feel exciting. Yeah. It was kind of like, well, oh wow, there's a DX7. Get the kid in who's got the Yamaha DX7 into the band. That's new. So I think it's that kind of that spirit of trying to keep doing something new. It's not always easy, and it's not always possible. But again, let your intuition be your guide, because if you start also going like, we've got everything that's got to be new, that becomes a cerebral thing as well. Like what I'm saying is just feel it, feel your way through. Does this feel right? Great. And it's got to be true to you. Whatever your truth is.
Did it take a while to develop that kind of confidence to do that, or is it just we did it and it was successful, so we can just keep doing this?
I think it's like we had a little bubble. Yeah. And we were in Oxford, and we just rehearsed and rehearsed. Before we were signed, we rehearsed, and it was our raison d'etre. For me, finding the guys, age 17 at school, and suddenly life was really, really bit weird, and then suddenly my life went into focus, and we had that thing, and it was something like, oh, it now makes sense. So it was more a case of we were on our own little bubble, and anybody who liked what we do joined us, whether it was management, they spurred us on and allowed us to do that. And then the record company, the EMI were amazing, Parlophone were amazing. They let us be. We didn't get A&R'd. We were just, and because we weren't partying, we weren't in London, we were outside of it all. We felt more akin to the West Country, like Portishead and Massive Attack, rather than the Britpop scene and all those things. And we just worked. And it's interesting that I think like our first album, Pablo Honey's just not a very good album. There are a couple of good tracks, and it's funny because the kids will be like, my kids are like going, "You got a song called Vegetable?" And they hear it and they go, "Oh, this is rubbish," because they've only known the late stuff. Sure. And I think what happened very quickly is it's like the gigging, and it's a bit like that 10,000 hour rule. Suddenly you accelerate so that you get into but again, that comes from just working and doing it, and again, what's the truth? And luck, Sure. Luck plays a huge part. And knowing how lucky you are, I think that's a big thing as well. And, trying to stay humble to it, because the other thing is if you don't stay humble and the ego becomes, the music will desert you. That's the other side of it. You got to remember how lucky you are. You got to remember that. Yeah. And like I said, I think this music thing is like, at its best, it's kind of, it's not you that does it. It comes through you. It's like it's like another thing altogether.
Amazing.
Here we are, almost 30 years down the line of being in a 3-guitar band.
Yeah.
How does a Ed O'Brien solo record look? What does it look like? Where do you begin with that?
Well, it's a kind of like 6-7 years ago. I'm in Radiohead. I've got a young family. I don't know. This is great. I realized 12 years ago, I'm living the dream. You know what? And I felt guilty for years. I wouldn't allow myself. And then I'm living the dream. This is what every bloody 16-year-old boy who plays guitar wants to do. This is amazing. So I'm really happy with life. And then suddenly I'm like, songs. And suddenly this thing, and again, it's like, what's the truth here? The truth is I'm not really content. Truth is I want to write songs. Truth is, and so I started to write, and I found a way of writing. Again, it was a way of, I'd never found a really good way of writing songs and writing vocal melodies and stuff like that. I hadn't found my way in. and I found my way in. And it was the moment I said, I'm going to write songs. And I would literally go into the shed in the garden or whatever, and I'd just start playing. I would go in at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'd play till lunchtime, and then riffs came about, and then things, and then dreams, and you sort of dream it up in your head. So that's where it started, and then I started demoing them, and I was like, and the guy who was in engineering said, "You can sing." I'm like, "No, I'll get someone else to sing them." And he was like, and then Flood, the great producer, he was a mate first and foremost. We went on holiday, and then I played him the demos because he's so honest, but honest in a very kind way. And I played them to me, and after 3 songs, he turned around and he said, and I was it was a bit like that. I was like, I'd love to work with Flood. Obviously, he's a mate, and he's like one of my favorite producers, but I don't want to put any pressure on him. And he turns around and said, "Do you want me to work on this? Do you want me to do this?" I was like, "Yes!"
Oh man!
So then we started dreaming up, and I was like, and I had this thing about like, right, I just want to work with the best. I really so Omar Hakim, drummer, extraordinary. David Akumu, incredible guitarist, producer. Nathan East, bass player.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
And then
unreal.
we've had they're the main ones. The other guests will come out later because I've got to get permissions and all of that, and you know, all that. But I had Flood.
My people said it's fine, by the way.
Yeah. Flood and Catherine Marks, who's producing, and I had an amazing team, and we just put together a record that, again, it's sort of not a forced thing. It's like it had to come out, and it's felt very natural, and it's been a big thing for me because I played less of this, hence I'm a little bit got boxing gloves on today. And it's been singing, a lot more acoustic, and a bit less time to do. I mean, I don't, when you're a guitarist and you're solely guitarist, you can just focus on sounds. I really haven't been able to do that. So my head's been somewhere else. And the other thing that I've loved is playing bass.
Wow.
I've never played the bass before, and by virtue of the fact that, Nathan and Omar and David were there at the beginning, the first 3 weeks of the whole recording process, but then there was a whole year afterwards in the studio, I've had to play bass, and I love it. And it's really, it's funny, and you approach it as a guitarist, you approach it in a different way. So it's been an amazing. I've kind of got the bug now. So I'm going to go out on tour and just getting.
Oh man,
putting
that's so cool.
We haven't got a label yet. Trying to find a label, but we'll get a label and then hopefully be out in September and start gigging it. And I want to put together just a band of really. I mean, I come from a band of really great musicians, but I want to put together a band of really great musicians, different musicians.
Yeah.
Kind of bit more jazz, bit more kind of. Funk thing. There's a kind of a funk folk jazz, funk folk soul thing in the record at the heart.
Oh wow!
Because a lot of it came from Brazil, being carnival.
You lived there for a while.
Yeah,
right?
we lived there for a while, and so the influence of all that rhythm stuff, and then stuff like, and it's interesting. The folk stuff was a lot of it was written in Wales, very similar, on the other side of the mountain from where Robert Plant, Jimmy Page wrote in Bronny Orr, all that stuff. It's weird. It's in that land. You start picking up an acoustic guitar, and it's that same atmosphere. It's really interesting. It's like, I hope to meet Robert or Jimmy one day and say, listen, did you feel it's like it's sometimes when music's in the land,
Sure.
the location is really, really important.
If you're open to it.
And
that's difficult in itself, I guess. It's just being open to it and
Yeah.
going, actually, I'm feeling this.
Yeah.
This is okay. I'm going to keep feeling this.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm going to climb to I had this 2 weeks, this utopian 2 weeks of writing, and I stayed in this little Welsh farmhouse on my own. My wife said, you can go. I was like, and every morning I would walk up to the top of the mountain and go down down to the river on the River Wye, and then I'd read some Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman, and that's very inspiring, and then come back and then play all day. And it was such an inspiring, it's like it puts you in the mood, and then the music just comes out because you're inspired by this place and the magic of music. So it was a really that was the great fit. The hard phases in the middle of the record when you're my last kiss. I like this thing, the 6 stages creativity, and you might recognize this, and some of your viewers will. So stage 1 of creativity is like, this is great. And that's what you always have, right?
Yep.
The beginning of a journey, you go, this is great.
Yeah.
Stage 2 is like, this is okay. Stage 3 is, this is shit. Stage 4 is, I am shit. That's the worst stage. And then stage 5 is like, this is okay. And then stage 6 is great. This is okay. This is great. But it is that journey.
Yeah.
And I think that again is the kind of a universal journey
right.
of creativity. So the art is to really try and appreciate when you're in the I am shit phase. Haven't quite got there yet.
Yeah, and you can come out of it.
Yeah,
the
well, you
thing.
know, trusting
knowing.
that you come out of it,
Yeah,
right? That's the heart. Yeah,
Crippling
exactly.
self-doubt is
Yeah,
essential for every musician, isn't it?
Oh my God, and insecurity. Yeah, but again, that's what keeps us going, right?
Yeah. I hope so.
That keeps me going.
Awesome. Okay, well, we can look forward to that hopefully in September time then.
Yeah.
And when you listen to it, are we going to go, oh, this guy's in Radiohead, or are we going to go, are we not going to make that connection?
You'll make a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll make a bit. Yeah, I mean, I think texture and some of the guitar parts are. Yeah, I mean, they're. You will do. There'll be textures. It's quite. There's quite a lot of depth to it. Texture. It's a little bit kind of magical, realist, slightly psychedelic.
Oh, cool.
You know, a lot
like it
of
already.
color.
Yeah.
A lot of color.
Yeah.
You know, like music when. That colour of South America, like Carnival, and we were on tour last year in South America, Radiohead, and we ended up in Colombia where we'd never been before. And me and the family stayed over 4 days and went down to the coast. And it's just, I kind of reconnected with the source of the music that I was doing. It was like really, it's like, you know, it's colourful and it's slightly,
Vibrant.
yeah. I love all that Brazilian music from the late 60s, the Tropicalia and Os Mutantes, and when they took the influence of Hendrix and Cream and stuff, and then put it through samba, and it's kind of, dare I say it, fusion?
Yeah.
Well,
The new fusion.
That's
Nice.
exactly what it is.
The
isn't
new
it? Yeah,
fusion, yeah. I love that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of where it is. Yeah.
Okay, well, just quickly looking at the board. So when you were recording, going into do Moonshaped Pool,
Yeah.
I think before you'd started that process is
Yeah.
when we first connected, and you were looking for a board that was going to give you a lot of flexibility, but that had the key elements on that you needed, but was still easy enough to to get around and do stuff. So obviously we have the Whammy and the Memory Man. The Belly Pop Deluxe is one that was relatively just before we did the board. You found this, and it's a wonderful sounding thing. This is Mick's also recently got one as well, and absolutely loves it.
Just something in that preamp sound.
It's totally in the preamp, and it's genius, isn't it? That you, even if it's got a digital delay, that preamp and that, is it the power? Is it that they bring the power down or goes up or something?
Something to do with 22 volts is the only thing I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of headroom in there, I guess.
And their preamp, which I use live, it's the last thing in my chain on each channel, wet and dry, into the amp, and that again, like I was saying, it focuses the sound. It's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, amazing
Magic.
pedal.
We have the Muffroom Cloud from Thorpe.
Yeah. One of yours?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you wanted a big muff thing, and I think when we did our big muff, because the EQ on that's very powerful.
Yeah.
It's called the Fallout Cloud now.
The
if
Fallout
anyone's
Cloud
looking
now,
for
but
it.
this is one of the original Muffroom Clouds.
Yeah.
The Cali 76 compressor.
Another of your recommendations.
Yes, wonderful thing. Well, again, it's one of those. We don't use compressors a lot, but whenever we had that on the show, it was like, oh, this is.
I know. I don't use a compressor.
Fabulous.
This is the first time I've really used a compressor, and I love it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And the wonderful Kingsley Page.
Another one of yours.
Well,
I spent a lot of money. No, not a lot. I've actually been lucky. I've been given a lot, but because of your show, because I've gone like, oh, I need one of those.
there's one story we have to, if you don't mind us.
Yeah.
So we did a show on the Echo Rec.
Yeah.
And it was amazing and inspiring. And then I think the day after the show had gone out, you sent me a text.
Yeah.
And it had gone, that Echo Rec sounds amazing. I've just bought it. And I'm like, what? Yeah. So you got in contact with the guys at Soundgas and said, yeah,
Yeah.
That was the big one.
That was
we
the
did.
big
Was
one.
it 70?
Yeah. That's, I felt really guilty about that as well because you guys are like going. I think Mick, you said something like this thing, like this is the kind of the juju. This is the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because you're such great arbiters of taste. I'm like, right, this is exactly what I need. So I'm like, oh, sound gas, and I felt and I felt really guilty because it's like, right, the guy in the big band, he's like shoving the kids out the way in the toy shop. I'll have that one, and that one. Thank you. Right, let's put it on account, sort of thing. But it is amazing, and I thank you for that because I'd never heard of Binson. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I never heard of Binson
I hadn't
before
that day.
No,
so
I didn't know the Pink Floyd thing. I thought it was all. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I thought it was EP2s or something, Echoplexes or something, but or Wem Copycats,
Yeah.
which they did use, right?
But you've said it's all over your
Yeah,
new
it's all
record.
over the new record. Vocals.
That's the best thing that could possibly happen to that unit.
Totally. It's vocals and amazing for textures. I mean, that thing is a textural thing in itself. Get it oscillating and feeding back. In fact, one of the tracks, it's just feeding back underneath the track, and it sounds amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. So thank you.
It couldn't have gone to a better home.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Ed, I don't know how we can possibly thank you enough for coming down and hanging out with us today. It's a really big deal for Mick and myself. Radiohead for me personally, OK Computer changed my life, and just doing this with you and getting to know you and stuff it's been so amazing. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come out today and hang out with us. And it's been
thank you.
a really, really big deal.
No, it's my pleasure because I'm a fan, but also it's also a chance for me to say thank you to the G2 has been amazing for me, but also it's a chance to say thank you to all the pedal guys out there because and I've had the good fortune to meet up with Joel at Chase Bliss and Ryan at Hologram. He does the Infinite Jets, and Analog Man and Zach at Spaceman. All these people doing that. And whenever I meet them, I say thank you, because what you're doing is, and what you guys do is, you inspire us to help us get new sounds. And if we don't get the new sounds, we can't be inspired. And if we can't be inspired, we don't get the music. We can't write the parts. So it's a two-way thing, and that's what I'm very thankful for what you do for spreading the word and the love about this amazing stuff, because I know plenty of other musicians who we'd be honking for the next 5 minutes who also watch the show, and as their wives call it, pedal porn. Late at night going, I gotta get that. I really need one of those, don't I? And you go, no, I've already got 3 bloody 10 overdrive pedals, but thank you as well. It's been really nice to connect and, come down here.
Wow.
Crazy.
Okay, Ed's going to play some. We're going to make some noise. Thank you to our Patreons. Thank you to our preferred retailers, and to everyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com. Again, Mr. Ed O'Brien, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
Great stuff. Thank you.